China's central bank just bought more gold in 12 months than most countries hold in their entire reserves. Not for profit, not for prestige, because they know something you don't. Central banks worldwide purchased 1,037 tons of gold in 2023 alone, the second highest year on record. Poland doubled its reserves overnight. Turkey's hoarding at levels not seen since the Cold War. Singapore, India, the Czech Republic all racing to stockpile the one asset governments historically buy when they're preparing for catastrophe. This isn't about market trends. This is about survival. And the numbers reveal a pattern that suggests the global financial system is approaching a breaking point. In the next 7 minutes, I'll show you what these institutions see coming and why your savings might be caught in the crossfire. Let's start with the scale. In 2022, central banks bought 1,136 tons of gold, the highest annual total since 1950. They followed it up with 1,037 tons in 2023. That's over $200 billion worth of physical metal moved into vaults in just 2 years. But here's what makes this unprecedented. Historically, central banks sold gold when prices rose. They treated it as a relic. In the 1990s and early 2000s, they dumped reserves to fund government spending. The trend reversed after 2008, but what's happening now isn't a reversal. It's an acceleration into territory we've never seen before. China leads the charge. The People's Bank of China reported 18 consecutive months of gold purchases from November 2022 through April 2024. Adding 316 tons to reach 2,264 tons officially declared. But analysts believe the real number is far higher. China doesn't report purchases made through state-owned commercial banks or shadow channels. Estimates suggest they could hold 4,000 to 6,000 tons, double the official figure. Poland's move was the most brazen. In 2018, they held 103 tons. By 2023, that number hit 359 tons, a 248% increase. They didn't announce it. They just did it. When asked why, Poland's central bank president said one word: security. Turkey accumulated 389 tons between 2017 and 2023, becoming the world's 12th largest holder. India added 200 tons since 2021. Singapore, a financial hub that prides itself on stability, increased reserves by 80% in 2 years. Even Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan are buying aggressively. Notice the pattern? These aren't random countries. They're nations either geographically vulnerable to conflict, economically dependent on commodities, or politically distancing themselves from Western financial systems. And there's one more thing they all share. I'll come back to that in a moment. Here's what they're preparing for: the end of dollar dominance. In 1999, the US dollar accounted for 71% of global foreign exchange reserves. By 2023, that figure dropped to 58%, the lowest in 3 decades. Central banks are quietly exiting dollar-denominated assets. Why? Because holding dollars means holding someone else's liability. After the US froze Russia's $300 billion in reserves following the Ukraine invasion, every central bank on Earth learned a terrifying lesson. Dollar reserves aren't yours. They're permission to access American-controlled wealth. And that permission can be revoked. Gold, by contrast, can't be sanctioned. It can't be frozen. It sits in your vault, under your control. When central banks buy gold, they're buying sovereignty. And the countries buying the most are the ones who believe confrontation with the West is coming or already here. Now here's where it gets more complex. Since 2023, BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, have discussed launching a gold-backed currency to rival the dollar. Russia's central bank has openly stated gold will play a role in de-dollarization strategies. Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE are now exploring BRICS membership. Think about what that means. A bloc representing 45% of the global population, controlling 40% of the world's oil production, moving toward a gold-backed trade settlement system. If even a fraction of international trade shifts to this mechanism, demand for dollars collapses and U.S. Treasury yields spike. The consequences would be immediate. higher borrowing costs for American consumers, inflation resurging despite rate hikes, the Federal Reserve trapped between crushing debt or destroying the currency. This isn't speculation, it's the scenario central banks are hedging against right now. There's a second motive beyond geopolitics: inflation. Gold hit $2,400 per ounce in 2024, up 40% from 2020 lows. Central banks that bought at $1,700 in 2022 are already ahead. But they're not buying for profit. They're buying because inflation is the one thing traditional reserves can't protect against. When inflation runs hot, bonds lose value, equities crash, real estate bubbles burst. Gold, historically, does the opposite. From 1971 to 1980, during the last great inflation, gold rose from $35 per ounce to $850, a 200–300% gain. Central banks that lived through that era remember. And here's the final piece. The same institutions buying gold are also printing money at record rates to service government debt. They know their own policies are inflationary. They're hedging against themselves. That's not a vote of confidence in the system. It's an admission the system is failing. If you found this eye-opening, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into current events. Drop a comment below. Do you think we're watching the end of dollar dominance? Or is this just a temporary shift? I read every one.